How many times have we seen performances such as Heath Ledger as the Joker, Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden, Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump, Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, and thought, nobody could ever do it better, or why does this other actor even bother trying? Hi guys, it's Debbie, and today I would like to speak about outstanding performances in the creation of a character and the impact that this has on the art that follows. When talking about the history of cinema, we can definitely pinpoint certain roles, certain characters, which we can only define as incredible, regardless of their good or negative connotations. These are characters such as Alex DeLarge in A Clockwork Orange, Sergeant Hartman in Full Metal Jacket, Forrest Gump. During the vision, these characters left such an impact on our memories that as viewers we struggle to accept the idea of somebody else portraying them, a different version of themselves. In some cases it's because of a particularly well thought acting, so fully taking on a role, preparing for it months or years in advance. For example, Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto spent weeks, if not months, closed in their homes, becoming weak and malnourished in order to convey the idea of patients suffering from an HIV infection in Dallas Buyers Club. This type of actor is so well curated that we don't feel as if we are just meeting another superstar portraying the umpteenth role, but rather we are meeting a real person. And this is why some people say nobody could ever do it again, or why even try to do it again? On the one hand, I understand the awe that we have towards these characters, these roles which defined cinema in the years that were to follow. But on the other hand, huge achievements in the history of cinema should not represent an obstacle in filmmaking. For example, Heath Ledger's Joker is widely considered one of the best movie characters of all time. When Suicide Squad was released, people were hating on Jared Leto for trying to be Ledger, and this was even before watching the film. I don't like the film. I personally really like Jared Leto as an actor. This was not one of his best roles, but these comments were coming out even before the first trailer was released. This was when we just had a couple of grainy pics of Margot Robbie and Leto together. Of course, Ledger's Joker was undeniably well built, it also because of personal inputs that he gave to the creation of the film. But does this mean Leto is a terrible person, a terrible actor for taking on such a big responsibility, knowing the legacy that Ledger had left, for just trying to do his job? And now Joaquin Phoenix is scheduled to portray the Joker in the next film. Should we just blindly start hating on him too? I think all of this has to do with the expectations, the high expectations we subconsciously have as viewers. People don't want their expectations to be let down, regardless of the fact that this is a deeply personal opinion. I think as humans we always want to preserve the good memories, and we try to avoid anything that could potentially alter or distort our perception. It's as if a new Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings film series were to be created. These concepts immediately generate denial towards the potential idea, and we see this happening right now with the upcoming Queen biographical film Bohemian Rhapsody. People have been hating on Rami Malek for being scheduled to portray Freddie Mercury even before the first trailer was released. Already when just his name was announced. Rami Malek, Mr. Robot, he doesn't even look like Freddie Mercury. This film is going to be terrible, period. Subconsciously, unfortunately, we wouldn't mind it if it were a less famous person, because by the way, Into the Wild, The Imitation Game, Dallas Buyers Club, Schindler's List, American Sniper, Erin Brockovich, Catch Me If You Can are all based on real life stories, but we don't know who these people are, so we just don't seem to care how these characters are portrayed or by whom they are portrayed. But hey, we were fast to judge Jesse Eisenberg in The Social Network as he portrayed the founder of our beloved Facebook, and we all loved Ocean's 11, but how many knew that it was a remake? How many of us went back to compare it with the first one? And how about The Great Gatsby, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Italian Job? So on the one hand, I understand the importance of certain roles, nearly as symbols, fixed symbols in the history of cinema, the awe that they inspire. Most of these roles will hardly ever be outdone, mostly because of specific personal inputs that the portrayer gave. On the other hand, I don't agree with the blind hate towards the idea of taking on a role. This argument ties in well with the concept that art is constantly evolving, each artist with each filmmaker drawing inspiration from previous art. Just as painters used to look at models in the past, the same happens with cinema. Christopher Nolan is one of the most famous and critically acclaimed directors working at the moment, but he has repeatedly insisted on how much inspiration he has drawn from Stanley Kubrick. But then at the same time, his own Dark Knight trilogy has set the bar for all of the superhero films that followed. Even more recent films will now set ideas for future films. We'll soon start seeing films adapted to Wes Anderson's style, his linear style, his quirky stop motion films. We will see films adapt into the naturalism of movies such as Lady Bird, Manchester by the Sea, and actors such as Timothée Chalamet, Casey Affleck. We can't stop and just refuse to make any more art, or at least try to make it, just because somebody in the past did it better. This is what art is, just trying to create something beautiful. Let me know your thoughts on this topic with a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and you'd like to see more movie related content, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.